Welcome, everyone. You found Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. I'm Myrna Haskell, Executive Editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women that empowers and inspires with a focus on the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Christine Forman. She is a veteran registered nurse. She is the podcast host of Unbound and Unbound Kitchen. She is a life enthusiast and an MS warrior, and I'm so happy to have her today. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Christine.
Oh, Myrna, thank you so much for having me. I have so been looking forward to this time with you and to chat about all things inflammation.
Yes, I know. And I loved your title suggestion, Coming in Hot, which was perfect for this, managing inflammation, right?
Yes.
And I know that this subject for you and I both is somewhat personal too, for how we live our lives. And so, some of that will come through, and our readers and listeners love that. So I wanted to start out for that reason exactly, to talk a little bit about your backstory, why it is you've been helping a lot of other people. You have these podcasts now, why you became so passionate and interested in teaching others about managing inflammation and gut health. So you have the floor.
Wonderful. Thank you, Myrna. So, as you mentioned, I'm a registered nurse, and so I do have a background and an interest in health in general. I worked in the emergency room, so I saw very repetitively people coming in crisis and in urgent cases where they repeatedly did not take care of themselves. So you could see, what obesity does to you and what, just lifestyle. And some of it's hereditary, some of it's choice. Some of it we feel like it's really hard to have a choice over, especially when it comes to food. And for a very long time, I admit, I think I was kind of very proud of the fact that every time I went to the doctor and they asked me, well, what's your history and what medications do you take? I was always like, well, I'm very plain vanilla. Like, I don't really have anything. I've had a couple C-sections and I don't take any meds. So I felt like it was a privilege to be able to say that because I don't take my health for granted, but I got very used to not having anything wrong with me until one day when that changed. And one day I literally woke up in my late 40s and I had numbness in my back that radiated to my thigh. And I'm thinking, what did I do? Did I tweak something? Did I pinch a nerve? But a pinched nerve would be painful. And I had no pain. And I had just taken a leadership position. Long story short, I'm in the emergency room and I said, all right, I've got MS. Somebody check me out. Something's wrong. And because I have a family history on my mom's side. Now, I don't know what MS feels like. I just know that it felt like pins and needles and it wasn't going away for a few weeks. Couple CAT scans, a couple MRIs later, it's confirmed. I had MS. It's very late in life to get that. And so when
you were probably shocked.
Oh my gosh.
Especially because you led such a healthy lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes. And I had nothing else wrong. And it seemingly came out of nowhere. Well, you don't catch MS. So something is triggered on the cellular level. Same with anything. You don't catch cancer. You don't catch any of these things. You don't catch any autoimmunes. So something is triggered on the cellular level, and it's a combination of genetic predisposition, probably some vitamin D deficiency.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. And if you were to look at a map of the United States and say, okay, show me where MS is prevalent, it would show you in the Northeast and in the northern countries where you don't get as much sunlight.
I totally did not know that about MS. Wow.
Yes.
And look at all of the folks who had to load vitamin D during the COVID years, right?
Yes.
When everybody was inside and not out at sports activities and things. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So when someone says to you, go outside and get a little sunshine for 10 minutes or go get some vitamin D for 10 minutes, take them up on it. We do it. I suggest it to everyone all the time. Go get some sun for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Walk around. Get some fresh air. It's good for you. So, but I didn't know I was vitamin D deficient. And all of those things, and probably stress, right? I was going through a divorce. I had a stressful job working in the emergency room. All those things were the perfect storm. And there I was all of a sudden with a diagnosis that I thought was going to be very life-changing. And it is, but in so many positive ways. So many positive ways. Yes.
Wow.
I know. That's
Do you
a
want to say, do you want to mention one or two of those things that once you realized you had the diagnosis that you felt was a positive change or path to your journey forward?
Sure. So it really took me a little bit to wrap my head around, like, what is MS? Like, what do I have? And oh my gosh, am I going to be in a wheelchair? Because probably as just a human or even as a nurse, I'm going worst case scenario. Like, what happens? And they've come a long way with how they treat MS and what the medications are and just the prognosis. But knock on wood, I'm not on any medications.
Wow.
And right now I have something called a clinically isolated syndrome. Means I've got a couple lesions on my spine that were enhancing, meaning they were active. Now everybody is kind of simmered down and they've been inactive since this diagnosis about 6 years ago. And I just decided, okay, so what am I telling myself? What's the story I'm going to tell myself about this? Everyone gets something in life. We're all going to have something happen to us on our journey of wellness and health and life. MS is going to stand for my something.
Okay.
And how do I embrace it? I have to be knowledgeable about it. So I did a lot of research on it. And one of the ER physicians said to me, I want you to take a look at what you're eating. There's a lot of studies around gut health and gut bacteria. And I'm like, come on, you can't be serious. And this is 6 years ago. And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with what I'm eating. Yes, it might. It might.
Mhm.
Might be the whole reason, but did it contribute? 1,000%.
Right.
So you have to be
A
very
lot of
good with,
people don't realize that,
I know,
Christine.
I know.
But what we put in our bodies, right? It
Yeah,
does really make sense, just
it,
from a very like generic level, even. You're
oh,
putting things in your body for energy, right?
mhm, mhm.
For brain health, to be able to keep up every day with, stresses and things like that. And so it makes sense that some things going in are not so great. And
This is
some
very
things
true,
going
Myrna.
in are much, much better, right?
Yes, and I mean, I grew up in the 70s. So when I went to school, my lunch was undoubtedly a can of soup that shall remain nameless that was probably loaded in sodium. I don't want you to have to delete that. So it was loaded in sodium, and I loved Slim Jims. Who didn't love a good Slim Jim back in the day? And probably a Twinkie. And but I danced.
That was
I
very
have to
good, yes.
say, I was at the
Exercise.
dance studio 6 days a week. So I was able to work it off, but thinking back, I can't imagine to what it actually was doing to my insides. My
And the
parents supported me.
70s too, Christine, right? Because I was there. That was like, that the part of the whole like TV dinner, era and, doing everything fast in the kitchen because, lots of times both parents, for instance, were working and didn't have
Sure.
time to make things from scratch, right? I mean, it started a little before that, but I just remember there were so many commercials and things back then. And then, the ultra processed foods. We have something in Sanctuary this month from Laura Pensiero about that. So check that out, folks.
I
But
will.
this is the kind of thing, I'm glad you mentioned that because, it is a cultural and lifestyle situation that people have to really take a look at and decide how they're going to try to naturally prevent chronic disease, right? You mentioned
Right.
obesity back at the beginning of the conversation
Yep.
and heart disease and some of these things. And lots of times all of the monies don't necessarily go to the chronic disease, but right away they go to the communicable diseases and those types of things that are so scary, right? But
Mhm.
who are the folks that are dying from those kinds of things that spread? It's the people that already don't have a good immune system and aren't healthy to begin with and probably have comorbid conditions, right? So
Well, you
this
brought,
whole thing about gut health
yes.
is so important.
Oh, it is. And you brought up something and you said, people that are dying from these, from these inflammatory processes. And let's just talk about obesity. And that's a little off topic, but coming into the ER, you could see somebody who was very morbidly obese come in and survive a massive heart attack versus somebody that would come in who is at the gym 5 days a week and not survive the same heart attack. Because when you are not healthy like that, your body, your heart specifically, will create these little ancillary pathways to get blood where it needs to go. So it has these extra highways. If you don't have the need for the extra highways, you've never created them. So sometimes a morbidly obese person could survive something more than someone who that's why you read stories about people dropping dead at the gym and you're like, but he was so healthy.
No,
But he
yeah,
didn't have any of the extra pathways. So I just kind of wanted to add that. So not to
absolutely.
say eat the Twinkies and have the Slim Jims. I mean, our parents did the best, they did the best they knew. And I grew up in a house where both parents smoked. They both smoked nonstop. And that was the thing back then. They gave it up. My mom did. But it's really hard. It's harder than like heroin to give that up.
Yes, it is.
It's
Yeah,
very addictive. Very
that's right.
addictive. But back to that gut bacteria. So I tried to look at like, well, what lifestyle changes? What I'm not doing anything differently. In fact, I eat healthier now than I ever did. So what did I do to contribute to this besides my genetic predisposition? But I have to tell you, I had gone through a really bad divorce. I was happily remarried at that time, but what became a bad habit was having a glass of wine.
Yes, I was going to ask you about the
Oh,
alcohol.
I
You
know.
and tens of millions of others,
Yes.
right?
But it's so habit stacking, right? You come home from work and it became what started out as a celebration of toasting my new life, right? It got me through the really hard time, but then it became, but we're so happy, let's have a toast on a Friday night, on a Saturday night. And it just became the transition cue from work to home. And it had wine, cheese, and crackers. Who doesn't love that with a little bit of pepperoni sometimes? And
Right.
it became, it
Or with a
became a
nice dinner, I mean, I'm there. I love wine, but I've become a lot more conscious about, especially now where I am in life, its effects on me are a lot different now than they were, say, 20, 25 years ago. I have to make sure I'm eating. I
yes.
don't drink in the sun because of the dehydration aspect, if I'm going to have a glass of wine or something, because I do love my wine. But
Yes,
yeah, I've really become a lot more conscious about it as well. And there's been a lot of studies out there that are saying
I
people
know.
need to back way off the alcohol. It's really a poison that your liver's taking care of, right? What does it specifically do to the gut,
So,
Christine?
so
The
with that,
alcohol.
absolutely. So when you drink alcohol, your body sees that as a toxin, right? It's not anything natural, and it sees it and it goes, excuse me, like, what are you doing here? And your liver will work double time to break down that toxin, double time, double time, double time. So if you are constantly pouring in on even if it's just a couple of glasses every day, your liver is constantly working at a heightened state of double time and it creates inflammation. You're never giving your body a rest. And so it creates these byproducts that are now in your system, and you have these little things called cytokines. And they're kind of like the hall monitor of what's happening in the gut. They look around, they're like, we see the byproducts that are created, and they're like, excuse me, what's happening? You don't belong here. And so I'm the little messenger, and I'm going to call in the troops, my little soldiers. Those are the white blood cells, and they're going to come in. They're going to fight you off. So you create the war in your belly
Okay.
and your body, and it can become systemic inflammation. You start to bloat, you start to hurt, you have brain fog, you're not feeling well, you're tired. Systemic means the whole body, not just your gut. And that's what can happen.
And you're tired, and I've read things too on how alcohol affects sleep, which was another thing we need, right? Is a good night's sleep. So if you are drinking like later into the evening and then trying to fall asleep, you might fall asleep right away. But then because, as you mentioned, your liver is working double and triple overtime,
Sure.
you're not having a good night's sleep, right? Or maybe you're waking up in 3 hours and then you can't fall back to sleep.
Well, it was
That
so
kind of
easy to
thing.
blame that on menopause. Oh, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock. Oh, that's just menopause. All of us are waking up at 3 o'clock. Are you sure it's menopause, or is it the one or two glasses of wine I had?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to justify the one or two glass. Well, I'll have red wine because it's healthier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big thing, which they're now debunking, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it healthier? I mean, maybe if you want to feel good about it. Yes. And I know that in other countries, alcohol is not a big deal and they let their children have it from an early age. Well, their diet is also very different, and we're not
Their
comparing apples.
diet is different, right? And their relationship around alcohol and why they're drinking it is a little different too. It's kind of
Yes.
like it's part of the food thing as opposed to I'm de-stressing.
Hmm.
It's, a social thing. I deserve it because it's the weekend.
Right.
It's less about that, I think, in some of the say France and Italy and some of these European cultures.
Absolutely.
Or it seems that way. I've been there. It seems that way because I kind of, saw how they were doing things and also eating, smaller portions and things like that. Eating maybe, not drinking alcohol all by itself, because if you drink alcohol by itself, it's going to affect you differently as well, right? On
Oh,
an
absolutely.
empty stomach, we're talking
Oh,
about inflammation.
correct. And so one of the things that I did though, because, as I said, it's very easy for it to become a habit. I
Hmm.
had to come up with my own mantra, which was kind of power over patterns. And okay, so this is just a pattern I've created. It's a bad habit. How am
Okay.
I going to make this different? And so what I did was, for me, it was about the aesthetics. I loved getting the pretty glasses out and pouring the glass of wine. And it was that transition with my husband and I in the evening. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it won't be the wine. Maybe it will just be water, but I'm still going to have an orange slice and I might still put it in a pretty wine glass, or I'll make a really nice, great cup of tea, but I'm going to get myself set up with a really cool teapot and really treat myself to some nice teas. And I have to tell you, the sip of the really great tea did that same deep breath as taking that sip of wine. It really did. But I had to set myself up for success.
And I'm glad you mentioned that orange slice because I've noticed that a lot of restaurants are because there's the whole mixology thing, right? So they're creating all of these really beautiful looking mocktails. So the
Yes,
person that may be not drinking at all or very rarely drinking doesn't feel left out of the beautiful cocktail coming because they have one
correct.
too. It just doesn't include alcohol, right?
Yes, you don't just have to get a plain glass of water and feel left out.
Right.
There's so much that is
It's
so
another pattern,
combined.
kind of, though, right? That idea of you're out for a fancy, meal at a restaurant, and this kind of thing goes with it, like fancy
Yes,
cocktail before the appetizer comes, kind of thing. I like that idea that you said about patterns, and I think
yes,
people will really try that. I hope all of you listening try that. But
please.
Christine, I wanted to talk a little about coffee because I'm a
Okay.
coffee nut.
I love
I
it.
love, 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 love coffee. I love the smell
Mhm.
of coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I look forward to my cup of coffee in the morning, and I've been so excited that there have been several studies, actually, and good ones that have used over several thousand people in the studies to see that some of the properties of coffee are actually helping with gut health because I just want to mention the one, and I'm probably going to kill the pronunciation, but let me get my glasses for a second so I can see this. L-acacrolitis or elictus, I think. It's supposed to be, it has a positive effect on the gut by helping the growth of good bacteria. And so I just want to say I am not trying to tell listeners out there that they should be drinking caffeine all day or having 10 cups of coffee, but there are some properties in coffee, and I think you can go to the decaffeinated types too, that
Mhm.
actually do something that's good for the gut. It's not, and you can drink lower acid like Sumatra type
Mhm.
coffees as well that aren't going to cause like gastroesophageal reflux, right? So
Correct.
there's all of that. So I was just wondering if you have any opinion on some of these coffee studies that have been out there, or are you a coffee drinker?
I am a coffee drinker. I'm a 1 cup a day person. First off,
Okay,
it's my favorite smell in the morning. So when you say smell, I'm like, oh, yes. The
I know.
minute it starts to brew, I take a deep breath and I'm like, I can do anything. I can get through anything for the day. I'm going to start with my 1 cup of coffee. And I generally only will finish about half of it. Now, coffee and what you put in it, right? So if you look on the back of some of these very fancy creamers that are also very habit forming to load it with sugar, that's really bad. You're going
Yes,
to take away all the good stuff that the coffee could
absolutely.
do. So I do have to put that disclaimer in there. I do
Yeah.
try to drink it black, but I have to tell you, it's still very bitter tasting to me. So anyone can have a cup of black coffee. More power to you.
Hmm.
Um, I will put just a little bit of creamer or some half and half just to lighten it up a little bit. And I
Yep,
find that once you start to get away from that sugar, which is one of the most addictive things you can give your
that's
body.
right.
And that, by the way, the sugar feeds all the bad stuff.
Yes,
Sugar
the
will,
it's feeding the bad bacteria then in the
yes,
gut, the sugar.
it feeds cancer cells, it feeds the bad bacteria. So coffee, they find, has something called polyphenols in it, and that is the plant compound that goes in there and goes, ooh, good bacteria, I see you and you want me. And so it will feed it. Some studies have also found that moderate coffee drinkers have a very, I'll call it health, equity, diversity, and inclusion for your belly. They have a nice,
I love
they have
that.
great diversity of the bacteria in your belly. And you want diversity because not all bacteria is the same. Some do better with digesting food and fiber, and other bacteria is good for fighting inflammation. So you want to have your bacteria well-rounded, I'll say.
And balanced, right?
Balance.
There's a balance.
100%.
And you will start, and I think you mentioned this earlier, you will start to feel if that balance is way off, more fatigued,
Oh, you do.
more achy, you're just not yourself, you're not as energetic, all of that when your gut health is messed up, right?
That is very true. And the other couple things that coffee can do, if you've ever had your first cup of coffee and then you're like,
Yeah.
I'll be in there for a minute. It stimulates the bile production and gets motility going. And usually you do need a bathroom break, which
Yes.
is good for you. You want to have those bathroom breaks. And yeah, so there are some studies out there that I am very like, I'm like, okay, it justifies my little half a cup or my 1 cup a day. I'll take it.
Yeah, so in moderation again, folks,
That.
and of course, if you're taking medications, always with anything like this, you have to discuss with your personal physician, obviously, because
You do.
everybody has a different background and a different health situation. But I
1,000%.
was just so happy to see some of these because I love my coffee. But Christine, I wanted to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting. So how do you feel about that in terms of like healthy gut? Like, does that work at all for balance?
So I always, and this is at first, like you just said, please check with your doctor. If anyone's listening, please always check with your doctor before you do anything because we're all humans and we all have, it's what works for one human might not work for the
That's
next.
right. Yeah.
So please check. But what I found and what some of the studies will suggest is that just like if you have alcohol and you're never giving your body a break, if you're always eating, you're also never giving your body a break. And if even if just once or twice a week, you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to give myself like a 16-hour window that I don't eat. It gives your body a chance to go, you know what, here's some time and space for some cleanup. This is how we clean up. And that's that cleanup song from when you were in kindergarten. Everybody clean up. Everybody put your toys away. It's kind of what it does. It gives your body and your gut a chance to reset and reboot. And it has a process called autophagy where it goes around. It's like, I feel like it's Pac-Man. It goes around, it finds all those little free radicals. It gets rid of a lot of the stuff that's hanging out in there that shouldn't be there. And it gives your body, and you'll notice if you work yourself up to a good 16 or even 18 hours, you start to get your clarity gets a little bit better, your mood's
Really?
going to
Okay.
change. And there's some people who will do an intermittent fasting where they're like, I'm going to do a 24-hour reset. Okay, knock yourself off. Knock yourself out. It's not for me. 16 hours, I'm looking for something. And that's my body's way of saying, it's time, it's time, it's time. Bring
And can
food on.
that fasting include overnight? Like you're
Yeah.
sleeping, obviously, and not eating, and then you're
Yes.
extending into the morning, or?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So if you, finish dinner by 7 o'clock and you're like, all right, we're not going to have any snacks, and you start at 7, it's a lot easier to get that 16 hours in,
Right.
especially some of the time you're sleeping.
So you're suggesting to once in a while do this because it does give all of your organs a break from constantly taking care of everything that's going in.
Rest and digest. Yeah.
Okay, okay, understood.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about gluten, the issue with gluten and inflammation. And I just, full disclosure, I'm gluten intolerant. So I've been working with this on a personal level since 2017, and it hasn't been bad at all, actually. We can talk about a few of our favorite products in a moment, but I just wanted you to say something about, gluten and inflammation and what we've been seeing, particularly in the United States with this.
Well, somewhere along the lines, and I'm not saying anything bad about the FDA, but somewhere along the lines, we decided our food pyramid should include the bread, rice, cereal, and pasta. And not all of that is created equal. I hear a lot of people ordering flour from overseas, and it's very different than the flour that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
created here.
it is.
It is. And so I'm just saying, not all flour is the same.
Yes.
So that bread, pasta, and rice, can you swap it for quinoa, sweet potatoes, and almond flour? You can. Some people are, depending on your intolerance levels, but I find that I'm not gluten intolerant, but I find that I sometimes just don't feel well when I eat that stuff, so to speak.
Okay.
And it doesn't wreak
And
havoc.
it is a natural inflammatory. So if
Yeah,
you go to a gluten-free diet, it almost works as an anti-inflammatory, right?
correct. And the what's really bad about how our bread, pasta, and rice is first off, it's processed, and if you've heard of leaky gut, it goes to how it impacts your intestinal wall. It's not good. It leads to a leaky gut. So all those free radicals and all those toxins that your body's trying to break down, it it just kind of opens it up and says, "Come on out here in the bloodstream. We're going to let everybody have a little sample." And that's why you feel bad. One of the reasons you feel
Yeah.
bad. Yes.
Yeah, and the bloating and everything with
Oh,
that. So it is one way that if folks are experiencing a lot of bloating, perhaps they might try for a couple of weeks or so
yes.
to go gluten-free and see if that helps them at all. I have a few favorite products that I want to share. Do you have any
You
products
first,
that
Myrna. I
you
want to hear what your favorites are because I think that you probably have like some really great.
Okay.
I want to hear first.
I
You
do
go.
have a couple.
Okay.
Tufayan Bakery. Have you heard of that bakery? They have the gluten-free wraps. They have a lot of different
Okay.
gluten-free products,
Very
but I
nice.
love their wraps because they come in
Okay.
spinach and sun-dried tomato and regular, and you can use them, with fresh vegetable wraps or whatever it is. You can even use them in lieu of a flour tortilla for a burrito, for instance, and it's
Yes.
healthier, because they're also non-GMO and all that good stuff.
Mm,
Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 flour because
that
it's
you
easy to
stole
bake
that.
with,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And Pamela's Pancake Mix. It's one of those products that I like better if you're going to use a mix than regular. Better than regular. There's a slight spice to it. There's not much in it. It's very healthy and it's delicious. So rah to Pamela's. But I wrote those three down. There's a couple of others. But do you have any specifically that you like, or some of these, or?
One of the things that I've been doing lately, and I've been talking about it on my Unbound, episodes. I've been trying to take, and who doesn't love a good tortilla, right? So I've been trying to swap that out and use cottage cheese and make a nice cottage cheese tortilla, so to speak. Put it in the pan, get yourself some everything seasoning bagel on top, and put that in the oven. Comes out, and you're like, ooh, okay, so I can wrap this. And now it's really healthy.
Oh, I would love to see. You know what? This is a perfect segue into you telling our listeners a little bit about Unbound Kitchen
Oh,
and a
okay.
few other things you're doing, because you've got a lot of things going on and you're offering a lot of really important information to the public. So anything you'd like to say about what you're doing so that listeners can go find you and see what you're up to?
So I think that inflammation, as we've already discussed, Myrna, and thank you for that, is yes, it's about what you eat, but it's also about food, give you some food for thought. A lot of what you tell yourself in the narrative, right? So Unbound, I feel like we fuel ourselves in two ways. It's the thoughts you think and the story you tell yourself and the food you put in your mouth. It impacts how you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that's kind of what Unbound is. I really developed a passion for anti-inflammatory cooking. So I have a cookbook that will be coming out. I'm hopeful for the fall. I'm working with some really great people to help make this all happen. It will have anti-inflammatory recipes. It will have some really great tonics and elixirs in there, stuff that I have tried. And I'm tweaking recipes because sometimes I'll try something, I'll be like, well, no wonder nobody eats this. It doesn't taste good. So I'm really trying to work on that so that it's really palatable. And my favorite four, I call them flavor savers. My favorite four are anything that you can put cinnamon in. Ginger is so good for you. Turmeric or turmeric, however you'd like to
Yeah.
say it. And garlic. I'm a huge fan of garlic. So those are my like four staples in my pantry. And we're going to be working on what does this look like? How do you can't just go into your kitchen and go, I'm going to be anti-inflammatory, everything else out. It takes stages. It takes habit stacking and it takes little steps at a time, but daily consistent activities.
Oh, that sounds perfect. And please
Yes.
let us know when that book comes out because I'm not sure if you know, but we have a very active book excerpt section, and I think our readers would really appreciate some of your recipes. So
Absolutely. We'll
thank you
share it
so
with you
much for
first.
joining me today, Christine. I could talk to you for another hour. Maybe we should revisit on another topic because this has been fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, Myrna, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for opening my eyes and ears to Sanctuary Magazine and your readers. You do wonderful things and share so much great knowledge with the rest of
Thank
us.
you.
So, big heart to you. I would love to come back. Thank you for having
Oh,
me.
good. Thanks. Okay, I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Myrna. Thanks for having me.
Sure.